For 4,380 days, a legal clock has been quietly counting down inside the Cruz household. On April 18th, 2024, that timer finally hit zero, and everything changed fast. Suri Cruz is no longer a child shielded by court orders. She's a legal adult holding years of memories, documents, and unanswered questions. While cameras chased Tom Cruise across London at Victoria Beckham's birthday bash, Suri was in New York, moving in silence and making power moves. The distance wasn't just physical. It was personal, calculated, and loud without making noise. The real statement didn't drop in a courtroom. It dropped on a graduation stage. By cutting Cruz and stepping out as Suri Noel, she didn't just tweak her name. She wiped one of Hollywood's biggest surnames from her identity. That's not teen attitude. That's a clean break with intent. For 12 years, Katie Holmes' divorce deal allegedly worked like a lockdown system. $400,000 a year in child support tied to total silence around Scientology. Now that support has ended, and so has the pressure to keep quiet. Tom may have buried the couch-jumping era, but Suri grew up in the shadow of it all. She holds the missing piece behind Katie's sudden escape, allegedly planned with burner phones and zero warning. And insiders know this. If Suri ever pens a memoir to cover her Carnegie Mellon tuition, no blockbuster stunt will protect that polished image. Stay locked in, and if you want more stories they don't want trending, make sure you're tapped into Juicy Reel. The NDA is done. The hush money era is over, and the silence is officially cracked wide open. To understand why Tom is sweating right now, you've got to rewind to where this really began. Because this was never a regular Hollywood breakup. This was a calculated exit, executed under pressure. Back in June 2012, Katie Holmes pulled off something nobody saw coming. She caught the biggest movie star on the planet completely off guard. On the surface, they were Hollywood royalty, perfect smiles, perfect poses. But behind closed doors, reports say Katie was living in fear. Katie had a front row seat to the inner world Tom was deeply committed to, and one name kept flashing like a warning sign: Nicole Kidman. She watched how Tom's adopted children, Bella and Connor, became fully absorbed into the church and slowly distanced from their mother. What the church reportedly labeled as becoming spiritual beings also meant cutting emotional ties with a parent viewed as a negative influence. Katie wasn't about to let that future touch her child. No way. While Tom was far away in Iceland filming Oblivion, she made her move with precision. This wasn't messy. It was strategic and cold clean. Knowing her regular phone could be monitored, Katie went completely off the radar. She used a burner phone given by a trusted friend and quietly assembled a legal dream team. 3 law firms, 3 states, one goal: lock the case down before it ever reached California, where joint custody outcomes could have looked very different. This wasn't panic. It was survival chess played at high speed. She played it clean, and she played it fast. By the time Tom even realized what was happening, Katie had already filed for sole custody in New York, locking the situation down before it could shift. That surprise move was her only real advantage, and she used it without hesitation. Just 11 days later, it was over. A settlement was reached at lightning speed, something almost unheard of in high-stakes celebrity divorces. The outcome was clear and decisive. Katie secured primary custody, exactly what she was aiming for from day one. But it didn't come free. Industry chatter and long-standing reports suggest the deal came with serious strings attached. Quiet restrictions designed to keep everything calm and controlled. Katie allegedly agreed to a strict 5-year dating limitation, avoiding public relationships and keeping romantic partners away from her child entirely. That silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. That quiet period created space for a normal upbringing, far removed from intense public pressure. At the same time, it quietly built a solid barrier between father and daughter, reinforced by paperwork and lawyers instead of emotion. For more than a decade, that wall stayed standing. But now the contracts are done, the financial obligations are finished, and the $400,000 a year ghost has vanished. What's left is reality, and it's heavy. The ink wasn't even dry before distance set in. One of the most visible stars on Earth slowly disappeared from this part of his personal world. The last confirmed public appearance together dates back to around 2013, and that silence speaks louder than any headline. He wasn't just busy, he was completely gone. Birthdays passed, school plays came and went, holidays stacked up, and he missed every single one. No quiet drop-ins, no surprise visits, no backstage hugs. When Suri graduated high school and officially removed Cruz from her name in the ceremony program, that moment should have mattered most. But her father wasn't in the crowd. Instead, cameras caught him overseas at a Taylor Swift concert in London, smiling for photos while history was being made without him. Over time, the role shifted. He stopped being a present parent and became a financial line item. Court records laid it out clearly: $400,000 a year in child support for more than a decade. Nearly $5 million sent to a child he reportedly never spent time with. Medical bills covered. Elite schooling paid. Insurance locked in. Every technical box checked. Legally, he did everything right. Emotionally, critics say he vanished. The money showed up, but the father didn't. And that's where things stop making sense. Former insiders argue he chose belief and loyalty to an ideology over real connection. Yet the public knows a totally different man. On screen, he's relentless. He fights studios. He risks his life for stunts. He dangles from helicopters and launches motorcycles off cliffs like gravity is optional. This is a man who never backs down. So why didn't he fight here? Why did the guy who sells the impossible walk away from the one role that actually mattered most? The answer traces back to one chilling rule: a policy so strict it turns family into risk. Under this system, people like Katie, and by extension her child, are framed as threats to spiritual survival. That label changes everything. Before we break down how deep this goes, real quick, if this video's got you locked in, hit that like button. It's free, it helps push the story out, and it keeps these deep dives coming. And don't sleep on this. More breakdowns like this are on the way. So subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss what drops next. Now, here's the core of it. The wall between father and daughter has an official name: disconnection. This isn't a normal family fallout. It's a full-on spiritual quarantine enforced by ideology. In the belief system Tom follows, anyone who challenges the group or slows its mission is labeled a suppressive person, often shortened to SP. Once that label hits, contact becomes forbidden. When Katie Holmes filed for divorce in 2012, she didn't just leave a marriage. She executed a controlled extraction to protect her child from being pulled into that world. In doing so, she allegedly crossed a line the organization never forgives. The rules are blunt. Members are not allowed to associate with an SP. If they do, they risk losing their status, their community, and their future within the belief system. And here's the brutal part. Tom Cruise, the most visible face connected to Church of Scientology, cannot be seen engaging with someone labeled an enemy, even when that person is the mother of his child. We've seen this pattern before, and the history matters. When Nicole Kidman left Tom, their adopted children, Bella and Connor, remained inside the church structure. Raised fully within that system, reports say they were encouraged to see their mother as a negative presence. That outcome wasn't random. It was the model. But Suri is different, and that's the problem. She's the anomaly. She's the first child connected to a high-profile member who was raised completely outside that world. Growing up in New York City, Suri lived in what insiders reportedly call the WOG world, the non-believer space. She wasn't audited. She didn't follow the teachings. She attended Catholic school and built a life shaped not by ideology, but by the one person the organization likely sees as the biggest threat: her mother. That alone makes her a potential trouble source. And now, she's an adult with zero obligations, no NDAs, no loyalty pledges, no fear baked in. She knows who her father is, but more importantly, she understands exactly why he hasn't been present. For a system built on control, an independent witness with first-hand knowledge is a nightmare, especially one carrying a famous last name. And she didn't need lawyers to make her point. She made her move quietly, but publicly. During her high school production of Head Over Heels, the audience scanned the cast list expecting one name. They didn't see Suri Cruz. They saw Suri Noel. That wasn't a typo. That was a message, and the first shot was already fired. She didn't pick a random name. She chose her mother's middle name instead, and that choice was loud. This wasn't a typo, a mistake, or a printing error. It was a headline move. By wiping Cruz off the stage program, she sent a message louder than any interview ever could. She made it clear, she's not defining herself by the man who wires the money. She's defining herself by the woman who actually showed up and raised her. That move was a clean, public rejection of the Cruz brand. No sugarcoating. For a man obsessed with image control, this cuts deeper than a box office disappointment. It proves something brutal. Despite the fame, the fortune, and the global reach, he couldn't buy the one thing that matters most: his daughter's loyalty. Now Suri is packing up and leaving New York. She's headed to Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, home to one of the most respected drama programs in the country. And yes, Tom will foot the bill, roughly $65,000 a year, because the 2012 divorce agreement requires it. He covers tuition, medical, dental, insurance, the whole checklist, but that's where his role stops. He has no control over her studies, no control over her relationships, and zero control over what she might one day put into a memoir. The money clears, but the bond is gone. And here's the nightmare part. Tom Cruise spent 4 decades crafting one image: the hero. He hangs off planes in Mission Impossible. He saves the world in Top Gun. But Suri holds the power to flip that story completely and rewrite the hero as something far darker. And that power doesn't come from fame. It comes from timing. Suri doesn't need leaks, interviews, or press tours to shake things up. All she has to do is exist outside the system and speak when she's ready. Right now, every move she makes carries weight. Every credit, every performance, every quiet decision chips away at a narrative that's been tightly controlled for decades. She represents something the structure can't manage: independence. What makes this even heavier is the contrast. On one side, Tom Cruise is celebrated as discipline, loyalty, and total commitment. On the other, his own child stands as proof that not everyone followed the script. Suri doesn't have to accuse anyone of anything. She doesn't need to expose secrets or name villains. Her lived experience is enough. Silence from her would still speak volumes, but her voice would echo even louder. Industry insiders already whisper that studios watch the situation carefully, not because of contracts, but because perception matters. One honest story from the inside can undo decades of image work. And here's the part nobody can ignore. She was raised outside the bubble. She wasn't trained to deflect. She wasn't taught to protect a brand at all costs. She's free-thinking, fully grown, and legally untouchable. That's not rebellion. That's leverage. And for a system built on obedience, that kind of freedom is the real threat. This is where the pressure really starts to build, because silence isn't safety anymore. It's exposure. Every year, Suri stays independent. The gap between public myth and private reality gets harder to ignore. Hollywood runs on perception, and perception hates unanswered questions. Studios don't just bet on box office numbers, they bet on narratives. And right now, there's a quiet contradiction sitting in plain sight. On screen, Tom Cruise is sold as loyalty, honor, and sacrifice. Off screen, the absence speaks for itself. No photos, no graduations, no shared milestones. That disconnect lingers longer than any headline. And here's what really rattles the system. Suri isn't angry on camera. She's not leaking texts or doing tell-all interviews. She's simply living her life without permission. That kind of calm independence is harder to discredit than outrage. People inside the industry notice patterns like this. When someone chooses distance instead of drama, it raises eyebrows. When they change names instead of chasing attention, it raises alarms. Because a person who walks away quietly can always walk back loudly later. And no contract on earth can stop that once the clock runs out. Suri doesn't need to attack anyone. Her existence already challenges the story. She's proof that control has limits, and that some bonds can't be enforced with paperwork. And for a world built on discipline and obedience, that truth hits hard every single day. And now the countdown has flipped directions. For years, the clock worked in his favor. ND, as active, payments flowing, silence guaranteed. That era is finished. Suri has stepped into a phase that can't be managed by lawyers or delayed by money. Every adult decision she makes is fully hers, and that reality changes the balance completely. What terrifies powerful systems most isn't rebellion, it's autonomy. Suri wasn't raised to defend an image or protect a doctrine. She wasn't coached on what not to say. She grew up learning how to think, not what to repeat. And that makes her unpredictable in the one-way control structures can't tolerate. Not reckless, independent, not angry, aware. Meanwhile, Tom Cruise continues selling fearlessness on screen. He outruns explosions, defies gravity, and survives impossible odds. But there's one thing he can't outrun: time. Every year that passes, curiosity grows louder. Not from tabloids, but from audiences who notice patterns. People ask questions when silence lasts too long. And here's the twist that stings the most. Suri doesn't need revenge. She doesn't need confrontation. All she needs is a platform, and that platform is slowly forming through education, art, and visibility. When someone with first-hand experience gains credibility, the story shifts fast. And once that shift happens, no stunt, no premiere, and no PR cycle can put it back in the box. This isn't about noise anymore. It's about inevitability. And here's the part nobody can spin anymore. This isn't about a falling out or a misunderstood family moment. It's about control finally running out. For decades, everything around him moved on schedules, contracts, and approvals. This situation doesn't. Suri represents something that can't be managed behind closed doors. She's not dependent, not isolated, and not shielded by legal silence anymore. She's visible, educated, and surrounded by people who don't owe loyalty to anyone but her. That's a dangerous mix for any tightly controlled narrative, especially when the story has been airtight for 40 years. One honest voice can unravel more than 1,000 rumors ever could. And let's be clear, she doesn't have to expose secrets or accuse anyone of wrongdoing. All it takes is perspective. One personal account of distance, absence, or emotional cost shifts the entire lens. For Tom Cruise, that's the real fear. Not scandal headlines, but credibility. The moment people believe her, the image cracks. Because heroes are judged not by what they do on screen, but by who they show up for when the cameras are off. And that's where the contrast gets uncomfortable. This is no longer a private family issue. It's a public contradiction playing out in real time. And every step Suri takes forward makes it harder to keep pretending nothing changed. The silence didn't protect the story. It delayed the reckoning. This is the end result of a father choosing ideology over his own flesh and blood. While Katie Holmes' silence was reportedly locked down by an airtight divorce agreement, Suri's voice was never part of that deal. She never signed anything. She never agreed to stay quiet. And now that she's a legal adult, the seal on the Cruise family secrets is officially broken. She's not guessing from the outside. She lived it. She saw the bubble from within, witnessed the escape, and carried the weight of a decade-long silence that wasn't her choice. That makes her a first-hand witness, not a tabloid rumor. Publishing insiders already whisper the numbers. A memoir from her could pull 8 figures easily, an event big enough to drown out any opening weekend box office. Documentarians would line up instantly just to capture the first time she says his name on camera. And this wouldn't be gossip. It would be dismantling a legacy piece by piece. For Tom Cruise, that's the nightmare no PR team can clean up. The child support checks that kept Leverage alive are finished. The contract's expired. The control is gone. What's left is a young woman with clarity, independence, and a story that could crack the last untouchable movie star myth wide open. He can outrun explosions and outfly fighter jets, but he can't outrun the truth. If you want more stories, they don't want unpacked. Make sure you subscribe to Juicy Reel right now, because this is just the beginning.